So when is it advisable to move out of the marital home with an impending divorce, and can your spouse force you to leave? Well, that's not the easiest question to answer, and it turns upon several factors. One, are there any kids involved? And two, who's the caretaker for those kids? Further, what are the finances like? Can you really afford two separate households on the combined income of the parties? Also, is there any physical or verbal abuse taking place between spouses within the marital residence? You know, again, it's very difficult to answer this question, and you really need competent, informed divorce counsel to give you a definitive answer to this question. The next part of the conversation is, can your spouse actually seek can your spouse get you removed from the household? Now, there's two different ways they can do that. They can do that either through an application for what we call exclusive occupancy, and that would take place within the context of the divorce, or they could file what we call a family offense proceeding, which is basically an application for an order of protection, which asks that one of the parties, one of the spouses, be removed from the household. And there are varying bases upon which you can do each or even both of those things contemporaneously. It calls to mind a case I had a number of years ago where the parties were not really getting along, and we found out later on that this was pretty much all planned all along. Parties ultimately had an argument over a camera, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. Police were called to the household. Wife filed criminal charges against what turned out to be our client. Also filed a family offense and made an application for an order of protection, and resulted in our client being removed from the household before he actually retained us to represent him in the case. Ultimately, we were able to get it sorted out. But again, the one thing I would say is that was a situation where parties were not getting along. There was some abuse back and forth between the parties. So if that's the case, you might want to consult with divorce counsel and think long and hard about setting up a separate residence. But again, that decision is a very difficult one to make, and it turns on a lot of different factors. What I suggest to parties, though, is try to work these situations out amicably. If you're not getting along, try and mediate these situations between yourselves. You don't really need, in most situations, experienced legal counsel to advise you as to how you can get along between the two of you. Try to stay within the household so that you don't incur that substantial additional expense. You don't have a very disruptive split of the family where the kids are involved and upset, and you don't have to seek an order of protection and an exclusive occupancy order, because that will really just drive up your legal costs. And if you can work things out between yourself and stay within the household, then ultimately, hopefully, that will buy you enough time to negotiate out a resolution that's amicable and acceptable for both parties.